Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Sager, and I'm the CEO of Plaid. I'm here with Haroon Mokhtarzada, who is the CEO and co-founder of Rocket Money, formerly known as Truebill. Haroon, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
You have an amazing founding story. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
After our first startup, which was webs.com, which we sold to Vistaprint, my brothers and I got back in the basement, literally the basement of my brother's house, and started tossing around ideas of what we wanted to do next. And we called it the Floundry, and the idea was to flounder and fail very quickly on ideas until we found something we liked. And we just started with problems that we thought were worthy of solving. And so I had been thinking about subscription cancellation for a long time and how it's really hard to manage your subscriptions and keep track of them and stuff like that, and was really frustrated. There was nowhere you could go to see all of your subscriptions. And all of us had multiple credit cards, and it just became really difficult to track. And I was like, this would be so awesome to do automatically, but it's really hard to do bank linking. We're like, how are we gonna connect to all these banks and get people's transactions, stuff like that? So I was like, forget it, because getting the MVP out there is just gonna take too long. We're gonna build all this technology just to find out the thing doesn't even work. And my brother Idris was like, funny you say that. I was like, why? He's like, well, there's a new startup called Plaid, and they do this bank linking thing. And by the way, I just wrote all this code for it last week because I was working on another idea, so I have the whole thing working already. I was like, what? So we quickly linked our accounts up. I think we were like user number 6 or something, literally. And we linked our accounts up, downloaded our transactions, stuck it in a spreadsheet, and wrote a quick model to find our subscriptions. And all of us found subscriptions that we were paying for that we didn't want to. So for me, I was paying $40 a month for a security system on a home I had moved out of. And I was just still paying every month because I had forgotten about it. That was the kind of the light bulb moment where we're like, maybe there is something to this thing. Like, we all found stuff that saved us money, and Truebill was born.
You were one of Plaid's first customers, and in many ways, both our companies grew up together. What are the major memories you have of those early days?
Yeah, look, it was easy to set up, but I just remember the early conversations like, hey, can you guys please fix Link? Or, hey, this is a really important bank, like, can you please get it working? But you guys have come so far since then, and it's been incredible to kind of be on that journey with you.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. There are a lot of PFM apps out there. How does Rocket Money stand out, and how has Plaid helped you do that?
Obviously, it wouldn't have been possible without Plaid, because Link sits at the core of what we do. It makes everything automated. Otherwise, you'd have to do the whole thing manually. What we did differently was we tried to really focus on what is the problem. And the way we identified the problem is we used to know where our money went, and now we don't know where our money goes. Now, why is that? Well, we used to pay in cash, or we used to write checks and balance our checkbook. And then we went to swiping, but then we got statements and we'd look at those in the mail. Then we went to paperless. Then we went to card on file. When you're not even swiping your card anymore, money is just kind of coming out of your account. So that's what we identify as the problem. That's why, otherwise, why would you pay for a subscription that you don't want anymore, right? So the solution then was, how do we remove the veil that's now between people and their money? And so we used the data that came in from Plaid and then built visualizations on top of that that helped people naturally make good decisions again with their money. So we never said, hey, you should cancel this subscription. We just said, here are your subscriptions. It was the first time that people could just see like a full list across all their accounts of where their money's going, what they're paying for. Or, hey, here's a pie chart of where, like, how you're spending your money, and here's how it differed from last month. Or here's a P&L. Like, people have never seen a P&L. Like, here's my inflows and my outflows, and like, how much am I actually saving each month? So these things, you would think that we should have had them a long time ago, and we didn't. And so we worked really hard to make that happen. And then we took one step further, and this really separated us from everybody else, which is, okay, so now you see a behavior that needs to be changed, like there's a subscription you don't want anymore. We said, well, what if we help them cancel it, rather than them having to go figure out how to cancel it? And so we went through the arduous process of figuring out across thousands of subscriptions how to cancel each one, and we built a massive team to go and cancel the subscription for you. So now, I see something, I don't want it, I need to make a change, we do it for you. Or, hey, this bill looks too high, we will help you lower it. Or, you should put more money in savings, we can set up a savings account to do that. And many of Plaid's products made that possible. So whether it was the link stuff and the categorization data that came in, whether it was auth and being able to get people's ACH numbers so that we could move money into savings. All of these things were hugely important for us to be able to do any of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that really is what makes it such an amazing kind of customer experience. It's the awareness and kind of the transparency to kind of understand what is happening in my account, and then it's making it easy to take action against that.
Yeah, and so we call it PFM Plus, and so the plus is the part beyond that where we actually service and take actions on behalf of the customer.
Yeah, I mean, that's a fantastic combination, right? Like generate the awareness and then make it really, really easy for the customer to
and then the app started paying for itself at that point, right?
Yeah. Was there like a specific product breakthrough, like in terms of making that happen?
Honestly, I think we used several of Plaid's products to make this work, right? So you had Link, but it was really important that we could deliver value to the customer very quickly. And the way your API worked, it actually broke it into two different calls. So there was the historical that gets like maybe 3 years of data, but we would also get 30 days of transactions very quickly. And so what that let us do is quickly present what we could of the subscriptions we know immediately after the user gets through onboarding, for example. And then there were other features like auth that then let us help move money because we could get to their ACH and help them move money to savings accounts and stuff like that. It was not one single thing, but it was kind of the stringing together of these different features. We took Plaid's categorization and layered our own kind of mapping on top of that. And so we were really creative, like, okay, what do we have available? And then how do we kind of want to process that and use it in a special way kind of inside of Truebill?
So from a consumer's perspective, you could literally sign up for the app, see the history of transactions, and then immediately take action all in the very first time you're interacting with.
Yeah, and more than just the history of transactions, but like identifying these are your recurring ones, these are the ones that are standing out, and this is where your money's going and kind of all of that.
6 years and 5 million customers later, you've come a long way. Congratulations. Like Plaid, you've always been very focused on onboarding. Can you talk a little bit more about how you've been able to build a best-in-class onboarding experience for your customers?
Yeah, so we didn't know it originally because mobile was kind of new when we were getting into it, or at least mobile-first apps. And it's not intuitive, although now it makes sense looking back. But we actually realized that there was almost more leverage in onboarding than anything else we could do in the app. And the reason that is because that's the only time 100% of your users are seeing it, right? Because there's some drop off after onboarding, obviously. And so that became a critical experience. And every percentage point improvement there was a percentage point improvement kind of across the board because you've got all of those users that would otherwise drop off and you'll never see them again. We built a whole A/B testing engine and always have tests going on with onboarding, usually multiple tests. And I know Plaid does too, actually. And so one of the first experiences that users get is to link their bank accounts. And so we've tested the screens leading up to that. We've tested that screen itself, obviously, about, hey, this is why you should do it. What safety message should we include? Should we not include? And then Plaid themselves has built a really awesome link experience. By putting in that effort and making that a really great experience, it kind of removes one of these barriers that the customer has is like, is this thing going to work for me? And when they see their account is linked and it feels secure and it works, they're now like in a mind frame, they're like, oh, wow, like this thing might actually do the thing that I didn't think it was going to be able to do. And it's kind of like a light bulb goes off and it's an aha moment for them. And we ended up creating, I think one of the best onboard experiences, possible, and it made a big difference.
Yeah, I mean, the onboarding experience definitely is very, very seamless. And I agree. I mean, something that we are just like, obviously together, but just from a Plaid perspective as well, just maniacally focused on is constantly kind of making sure we're making every little possible improvement because we know how important it is to kind of nail that at the very beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
Besides some of the experiences, some of the improvements in Link, are there any other big improvements that you feel like Plaid made over the years that really stand out to you?
For us, it wasn't even improvements. It was like none of these products existed, and then you would slowly roll them out. And as soon as you did, we would start using them. And so the first one, for example, was refresh. So like you could do live refresh, and that became one of our first premium features where we'd have a button called sync, and it would like live sync your data. And people started converting because of that, and that helped us kind of improve our premium model. But there's other ones. So auth, I don't think people understand how much of the entire fintech industry was driven because you guys did auth. It was before that. To get ACH numbers, you would have to do like microtransactions, and that's like it's a multi-day process. The drop-off was probably, I don't know, 50, 60, 70% for many apps. And here you go to drop off a zero, basically. Like they put in their username and password, and then you get the ACH numbers or the Stripe token. And so that was phenomenal for many businesses, for ours and others, to enable those types of products. The other one was balance checks. We thought about, okay, how can we use this? And we move money for people. Either we're billing them or we're putting money into savings accounts. And we also have a lot of people who are paycheck to paycheck. And so overdrafting becomes a problem because of the delay. And so we spent a lot of time figuring out how do we use balance checks to reduce overdrafts. And so we could check a person's balance before doing an ACH transfer, make sure there's enough buffer there based on kind of prior spending habits and stuff like that to make sure that we then don't overdraft them. We probably saved people a lot of money from overdrafts that way.
Oh, you've definitely saved people a lot of money. I know we've obviously seen that across the industry, and we've seen other folks follow your lead to kind of try to implement balance in the same way to kind of help consumers save money across all those types of use cases. Any upcoming opportunities you're excited about tackling with Plaid?
Well, one place that's going to be interesting is money movement, and figuring out how to okay, now that a person's account is connected, what else can you do? And so one is money movement, and then the other thing is you guys starting getting into more credit underwriting kind of tools. And as we think about our future, we just launched a credit card called the Rocket Signature Visa Signature Card, and other things like Rocket Loans that we have. These are all areas that we hope to collaborate on in the future.
I don't think we're going to be able to get out of here without talking about AI at least a little bit.
That's right.
What's your perspective on that in terms of how you think that will kind of impact not just what you're working on, but kind of what you could potentially kind of work on, or what we could potentially work on together?
Yeah, look, I think both of our companies are going to be transformed with AI, just like many, many companies out there. Plaid has always been good at taking raw data and then adding sort of additional context to that data. And generative AI, I think, opens up that opportunity even further. So we're looking forward to that, and hopefully you're not going to make every fintech out there do that work. You can do that and expose it so that we don't all have to build that. I don't think that many people have asked, hey, is there just going to be like a money GPT or like, chat GPT for your finances? I don't think that that's like the replacement or a replacement for Rocket Money. I think that you still, when you go through your finances, visualization and charting and being presented information is a better user interface than having to ask, because most people don't even know what questions to ask. And so it's what we're doing is actually telling people, hey, this is the stuff you actually need to care about. Most people don't even know that. And I tell people, like, use this as, a free school where you get to learn about AI, and you're allowed to spend time trying to figure that out. And then I myself, maybe selfishly or not, I created a little Skunkworks team so that I could just start building fun stuff.
I mean, again, it's all in the spirit of trying to make it easier, right? You give awareness to consumers, you want them to be in control, but then you want to make it easy for them to be able to kind of take the action that they want to take so they can just, live a better life.
Totally.
You're a prolific angel investor with over 100 investments, and you talk to entrepreneurs quite a bit. What advice do you have to folks kind of starting their own business who are hoping to emulate your success? Yeah,
I mean, I think first it's important to frame problems really well, like take the time to frame the problem that you're trying to solve. And like I tell, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, or people who are interested in entrepreneurship come and say, like, where should I start or what should I do? And I always say, like, just start with a problem that you think is a problem that bugs you or bugs someone you know, and try to go and figure out, like, how do you solve that? And then usually if you solve a problem, there's some business model that you can figure out after that. The other thing is, I think it's really important just thinking about, like, what do you actually want at the end of the day? And so you might build a business because you want financial freedom, but then spend the time to figure out, well, if you have the financial freedom, then what would you want to do after that with that financial freedom? And then you might be able to have a startup or a company that does that thing also, and then it can be fun the whole time and rewarding the whole time. So either it's a mission that you care about and you're doing that, or you're trying to make money, which is also fine, but then that should be in furtherance of some future mission. And I think in the world that we're headed, figuring out kind of where our meaning is, where we find meaning in the world, is going to become a more interesting challenge. Because in the past, whatever, tens of thousands of years, it's just been about subsistence and like, can we get enough food and can we like not get eaten by lions and things like that? And then we got fire and we had a little more time, and then we got agriculture, we got more food. But now it's like, we really, I think, are going to start entering into an age of abundance in which like just providing is not going to be the thing anymore, and like humans are going to have to figure out where their meaning really is.
That's a really inspiring answer. For those entrepreneurs or business leaders considering Plaid, what do you think they should know?
At its core, Plaid has always been focused on the developer and has made that process really great and simple for our engineers. So our engineers, we'll hear about a new product, we'll get beta access, and they can start writing to it really, really quickly. So it's always been like really easy to implement things. That's one piece. And then fundamentally though, and I remember when we were kind of decisioning, we're like, we're going to hang our hat on a company. Do we want to hang our hat on the company that's kind of like the best today, or the one that we think will be the best in the long run? And we decided the answer needed to be the second one, and we picked Plaid, and we were right. Because I think fundamentally the mentality at Plaid has been really supportive, and you guys have stayed very close to kind of your core and your roots. I think a lot of other companies, they go and try to expand and go do other things or get into like data selling or kind of, other things like that. And I think Plaid has just been like laser focused on like, how can we continue to help these fintech companies and banks and other people kind of grow their own businesses, and how can we support them, and then we can share, in the win.
Haroon, thank you for coming. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I appreciate you making the time to join us here at Threads 2023.
Thanks. It's been great working with you guys.